Hello, welcome to an Agnostic Moment. I messed up. When I started the series, I promised 101 entries. I don't think I anticipated up to 70 hours to write, produce, and edit each one. So until I get some help, maybe I'll cheat, just a little, and knock out 7 with one blow, reserving the right to revisit them later in more detail. I'll call them the Big 7. It is said whoever successfully frames the debate will usually win it. Often I hear non-theists try to frame their positions something like this. If we're talking religion versus logic, I'll take logic every time. Or you stick with the issues of faith and leave the real world to science. Or even, you can't prove God because God, even if he exists, is a spirit. In my humble opinion, these are carefully constructed straw arguments that have a total validity of 0, nada, bupkis, zip. I'm not willing to yield the high ground on the basis of such flimsy and erroneous arguments. So let me present my Big 7 arguments for God from science, logic, and reason. The principle of Occam's razor says that the most elegant and simple explanation that accounts for all of the data and makes the fewest assumptions is usually correct. Consider the amazing complexity of the universe, the elegance of mathematics, the enigma of human consciousness, the wonder of the atom, the DNA code, the phenomenal complexity and diversity of life on Earth, the miracles of sight, human joy, love, laughter, music, art, language, creativity, self-sacrifice, and a myriad of other things that we cannot explain or even understand. We need to either come up with a myriad of inadequate, just-so stories to attempt to explain each one individually, or acknowledge that there appears to be intelligence behind the design of everything, a single, elegant, unifying explanation. The second law of thermodynamics states that the amount of usable energy in a closed system like the universe will decrease over time. In other words, the universe is winding down. Eventually, all the energy in the universe will become evenly distributed. All of the stars will become burned out cinders. All of the planets will become frozen rocks. Any organic life in our universe will be impossible. Since we now know that the rate of expansion of the universe is actually accelerating, there will be no collapse and rebirth of the cosmos, as some have suggested. Face it, it's a one-shot. Someone wound up the universe, and it's slowly winding down. There is a branch of science that studies the anthropic principle. The principle is all about explaining why all of the cosmic laws seem to conspire together to make life, especially human life, possible. As we saw in the Big Number episode, there are effectively an infinite number of possible universes. But like an unfathomably complex lock, only one combination allows for organic life. Even in a life-friendly universe, the possibility of having a single planet like Earth, where all of the 80-some-odd variables come together to make life possible, are astonishingly small. To quote Dr. Hugh Ross, even with 100 billion trillion stars in the observable universe, the probability of finding, without divine intervention, a single planet capable of supporting physical life is much less than 1 in a trillion trillion, trillion trillion trillion. Trillion, 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 trillion. Many scientists now grudgingly admit that it appears that there did have to be some sort of blueprint behind the cosmos and the Earth. The law of cause and effect states that you cannot have an effect greater than the cause. Yet the materialist claims that the grandest effect that we know, the creation of the entire universe, and the resulting phenomenal macroscopic and microscopic order, and the complexity of life, was the result of the weakest possible causes, chance and dumb luck. The arrow of time shows that an infinite regression of time backwards is a logical absurdity, a temporal enigma. Like a poorly designed freeway system, you just can't get here from there. Physicist Stephen Hawking proved mathematically that when the universe began, so did time. He understood the theistic implications and tried to stuff the genie back in the lamp with little success. If time is a construction, then someone existing outside of linear time constructed it. The Apostle Paul in the Bible mentions several times that God existed before the foundation of time. According to comedian Stephen Wright, God created time so everything didn't happen at once. Consider the moral argument. All sane people understand that there are certain things that are always right and certain things that are always wrong. But in a godless universe, that cannot be true. In a godless and purposeless universe, a human being has no more intrinsic right to survival than a rock. And if that is true, then all laws are merely social conveniences, and Mother Teresa, Oskar Schindler, and Harriet Tubman were no more good or bad than Hitler, Stalin, or the latest mass murderer. If, as Darwinism demands, the most powerful motivator is survival of the fittest, or to put it another way, survival of the most merciless, then how do we explain our horror when someone actually tries to live that way? We call him a sociopath because we all know, unless we've cauterized our consciences, we know in the depth of our being that there is good and bad, there is right and wrong. Finally, if we can put aside our prejudices for just a moment, let's objectively consider the enigma of the Christ. He had a greater effect on the human condition than all the armies that ever marched and all the teachers and philosophers who ever taught. He equalized all castes, all races, and both genders. History is measured from the date of his birth. In his lifetime, he fulfilled well over 300 specific, detailed, ancient Old Testament prophecies from the Bible. 300! All were written at least 400 and up to 1600 years before he was born. Fulfilling most of these was completely beyond his control. The possibility of this happening by chance is so vanishingly small that it is effectively zero. Or maybe all of this, all of the big seven, are just a coincidence. And maybe, just maybe, I'm actually Max the Wonder Dog. And that's an agnostic moment.